like to call this meeting to order. This is the December 9th meeting of the Board of Selectmen. First, I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded and ask if there's anyone in the audience who is also recording this meeting. Seeing none, if we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item we have tonight is public comment, and we have Wayne Page.
Good evening, Wayne Page, 90 Oak Common Road.
Good evening.
I'm up here tonight to let all the children and parents and grandparents at the Santa Claus call-in show will be Thursday night of this week. It's 12/12, and it'll be on Channel 11, excuse me, and the phone number will be 508-832-5323. And as you know, we've been doing this for many, many, many years, and we're going to keep doing it. But I just want to let the public know, because it was Santa Claus has a lot of work this year, so we had to come a little earlier than previous years. But so if the children want to call in, if anyone wants to go and read a short story or sing, they can go to the high school studio, and we'll put them in there, or call me at 508-832-3581, or even just show up that night. It'll be from 6 to 8, and we always go overtime, so, but we don't mind. But that's the set time.
Okay.
And thank you very much.
Will you just give that phone number again, please, to call in?
Yes, phone number is 508-832-5323 for the studio for that night. And my number is 508-832-3581 if you want to sing or do a short story. We have a lot of children, too, that sing over the phone, and it's great. It's like, it makes the show. And then sometimes we get the parents involved, too. So, I mean, it's a great thing. We do it every year, and it works out great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Next, we have Chief Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello to the board. Along those same lines, as soon as Santa has done his talk show, a week and a half later, he'll be making his tour of Auburn.
Excellent.
This will be the Fire Rescue Department's 59th year on the Santa tour. It's an event we look forward to every year. We get a lot of great feedback. I know the community always looks forward to it. We haven't changed the format up too much until this year, where Santa is going high-tech, and Santa will be on Twitter during the tour. So we've created a hashtag, Auburn Santa Tour. So we encourage the community to follow Santa on Twitter. Let us know where he is. Let us know what streets he's on. We'll keep posted with where we are and how we're progressing with the day. And we also encourage throughout the day, if you visit us on our website, auburnmassfire.org, click on the Santa Tour link. There's an email address there. Throughout the day, we encourage the residents to send us your Santa Tour pictures. And we'll get those up on our website. It's something we did last year. We had a lot of great feedback from it. So we want to try to make it as interactive this year as possible. So again, it's Auburn Santa Tour, hashtag Auburn Santa Tour, and you can follow him on Twitter that day. It's Saturday, December 21st. It's the Saturday before Christmas. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
What time did you say? What?
We leave the headquarters fire station at 11 o'clock, and we wrap up about 9 o'clock. Thank you for actually bringing that up. If you click on, again, on the Santa Tour link, you can download a copy of the map. The route map is there, and we list some approximate times throughout the day as to when we'll be on streets. Obviously, traffic, certain things may have us, so we're usually within 15 to 20 minutes of the estimated time, but be patient. He will hit all the streets that are on the list, but we leave headquarters at 11 o'clock. We usually wrap up about 9.
Thank you. So we have just a couple minutes before our before our advertised hearing. I'll entertain a motion to move up Town Manager item 7C.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed or voted? So continuing on that theme.
Continuing on that theme, first of all, I want to thank everybody for their involvement on Friday to pull off the second annual tree lighting. It was great. Santa's been very busy this year in Auburn, and we're glad that we've been able to host him as much as we can. He had a fire station full of children there on Friday night, which is great, even though the weather was not that cooperative. Everyone had a great time. So I want to thank everyone who was involved in putting that together, DPW, police, fire, public health, everybody. Too many to mention, but the high school band was there. It was just a really nice community organization, and I know a number of the selectmen were there as well, so thank you for coming, and it was a great event. Our next holiday event, in addition to the lineup, the Santa lineup, we also have this year, for the first time, an annual holiday craft fair. And that will be this Saturday, December 14th, from 9 to 3 at the high school. And at last count, we had over 40, probably close to 45 different vendors who will be in there. So it should be a great event. If you need any additional information on this event, you can call Kristen Pappas at 832-7736.
And where is it being held?
This is at the Auburn High School. 9 to 3.
Excellent. Thank you. Can I have a time check? Is it 7:05?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. We're moving on to our public hearings. We have a 7:05 hearing for Bridgestone Retail Operations, doing business as Firestone Complete Auto Care Auto Repair. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The hearing is open. Is there someone here for this license? If you could come up to the podium, please. Give your name for the record and just tell us a little bit about what you're here for.
I'm Keith Kudjma. I'm a district manager with Firestone Complete Auto Care in the Boston area. And this is Lauren Matthews.
Hi, this is exciting. I'm the I'm the interim store manager in Auburn.
Okay. So just tell us a little bit about why you're here tonight for a license.
It was brought to our attention that our license either had expired or wasn't on record, so we're going back through the licensing process. I believe we've been doing business at the Auburn location in excess of 20 years, and we do basic automotive service. We sell tires, obviously, it's a tire company. Basic automotive services with oil changes and brake services and, the basic automotive maintenance service.
Okay. So it was an oversight that you didn't have your license renewed. The licenses are renewable at the end of the year annually, and you must have a valid license to operate. So, do any members have any questions or comments? I know you, because we had to treat it like a new license, you needed to meet with the Development Coordination Group, and they have a couple bullets here on your license. Are you familiar with those? That all vehicles are to be parked on paved surface and arranged per the approved site plan. This shall include customers and employees, and there shall be no outdoor repair on the property. So those are conditions that the DCG has recommended that this board put on your license.
Okay.
Mr. Simonian?
So was this what a renewal that lapsed at the end of last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you want to address that?
Yeah, if I could, if you want me to. Through the chair, I believe the license had been, it had been a number of years since the license had actually been active. We tried to trace it back some over a decade ago, trying to track where this might have happened, and when it was brought to our attention that they didn't have a license, and they were not aware that they didn't have a license either, because they were never on any list that went back as far as we could find.
Okay.
So it's been several years. I couldn't tell you how many exactly, but they've been great to work with. We explained that they would have to have a new license even though they've been operating.
Any other board comment or question? Is there any public comment or question? Is there a motion to
Close
close?
the hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So voted. Is there a motion regarding the license?
Motion to approve the license provided all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all of the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void, and with the conditions of the DCG.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Thank you for coming in tonight. Okay. What do we have for time? I don't think this clock is right. we're early anyway, so do we want to look at our annual license renewals? We have Board of Selectmen item 6A1, annual liquor license renewals. Is there a motion to move that item up? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. So in your packet, you have
You
a,
have a comment back.
I'm sorry?
Oh.
Okay. So the item has been moved up. In your packet, you have the 2014 liquor license renewals. For the record, I just want to state that I have filed the disclosure at the clerk's office regarding these licenses.
I too have filed because of being a member only and that I'm a member of the Elks.
Okay. Are there any other disclosures? So before you are the list, on number 15, I'll just call to your attention, it says Periwinkles. That should read Periwinkles doing business as J. Anthony's. And Mr. Burney, who has been dealing with the license renewals and whether they are in compliance, would like to be heard. Good evening, Mr. Burney.
Good evening, all. So the DCG met this morning, and we discussed your license renewals. I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to write something for you. There's 2 liquor licenses that we would like you to attach additional conditions to. The liquor license at Century Sportsman's Club, they have some egress issues that they are in the process of correcting. There's a secondary egress on the back of the building that at the time of the building division's 110 inspection, which is the annual safety inspection for places of assembly and liquor licenses, they found that this egress was in disrepair. They brought it to the club's attention. The club has pulled the building permit. They haven't completed the work. So we would look for that and the other items identified under the 110 inspection to be corrected as a condition of the license. They have been cooperative and they have been moving forward, but the items are unresolved at the time. So we would ask that you condition that along with the other conditions just to keep it in the loop for this license period.
So I have a question for you. We will be meeting at least once
Okay.
before the end of the year to deal with these license renewals. I think it may be best if we pull this
Okay.
from tonight's and we can still take action on it. It won't lapse.
Sure.
Ms. Jacobson?
Through the chair, you might run up against a crunch of time with the state for the liquor licenses, so I'm not sure how much time we actually will have to get this done.
And I know that they just pulled the permit within the last week. So, again, we are confident that they're going to go ahead and do it. We just want to start to be proactive about having the board be informed of if there are issues and ensuring that there is some clawback in the case that they don't do it. And I know ultimately the board could at any point decide to hold a liquor license hearing, but this is a public safety issue for people who attend events at that location.
Okay, is it an issue if we
Through
hold
the
it?
chair, the liquor license renewal applicants have to be in by the end of November, and then that has to go off to the state as soon as possible. So the state now has the liquor license applications. They were awaiting approval from the board. Your next board meeting being December 23rd may be too late. I think you may be better off conditioning it now, and if they don't meet the requirements, you can always contact the state.
And again, I think that part of it is the 110 inspections. It used to be the 106 inspections. With the adoption of the ICC, the code section has changed. Additionally, the state has rolled out a specific checklist that all communities are using so that they are being consistent. So there's a lot of education going on amongst our businesses in town that are going through this. So the 2 businesses that I'm going to speak about tonight are even a little bit outside of what some of the other businesses haven't done.
Mr. Simonian?
Are there any currently any conditions on that license, on the existing license regarding maintaining egress and entrance, access to the building?
It's part of the requirements of the annual inspection.
Right.
The building code has always required that they maintain it as part of their continued holding of the liquor license. They, through a variety of different reasons, have failed to maintain this access. It was caught during this year's inspection. The new local inspector that we hired back in September is performing these inspections. So he's in the process of educating everybody he goes to inspect, as well as trying to develop a long-term database that's easy to continually refer to. So we don't know what the condition of this was in the past. And again, is it a requirement? Yes. Is it a condition of the license? Not explicitly. I think it's an implied condition.
Is there a time frame for them to complete this work? Do they have a deadline to have it completed by?
I don't think that there's an explicit time frame. They have pulled the building permit and they're in the process of conducting the work. The building permit is good for 12 months. So, I guess in the conceptual scheme, 12 months would be the long end of their compliance. The 110 inspection generally requires that you fix these issues immediately.
So if it's a safety issue, how long would you let it, I mean, because they pulled a permit?
I'm not going to make that call. That's the building inspector's call.
Okay.
Something like this that does involve construction, the pulling of the permit, as long as there's progress, will generally be given 14 to 30 days. And again, this is from my understanding of previous issues I've worked on with the building inspector. And again, I don't want to speak to if he's given them a definitive time frame.
Okay. And what was the second?
The second was Major League Roast Beef. They have a fire suppression system in their kitchen that is there for the event of grease fires. There's no inspection tag on this system. Their fire extinguishers were out of date at their annual inspection last year. They continue to be out of date this year. So they've shown a chronic failure to correct the issue. And so there's some concern that they're going to continue to do so. So I think that in speaking with Captain Steve Anderson and both Chris Lund and Nick Antanovica, the building inspectors, they felt that conditioning correction of this issue as part of their license may hopefully be the fire that gets them moving to do what's ultimately a relatively simple task. It's just a matter of having the professionals come out and paying the money to have those systems inspected.
Okay.
And again, as part of the education, we're trying to not force them to close or lose their liquor license. We just want to work on getting them to comply.
So I think the chief maybe here to address the safety issue.
Just to follow up regarding the time frame, you had asked the question on the first property, what the time frame would be. In this particular situation with the fire suppression system and the extinguishers, this is a problem that could be rectified literally within a week. So if the board was looking to put a condition on this license with a time frame, this is something that a week or two could be rectified. It's not as involved as the situation in the first property.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Do any members have any questions on those two issues? What I'd like to do is have our 2014 liquor license renewals and pull number 2 and 23 and take those separately.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a motion to approve the list as presented with the exception of 2,
and
which is Century Sportsman's Club, and 23, which is Major League Roast Beef?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Now, we'll take these separately regarding Century Sportsman's Club liquor license. I personally would like to get a report back on the status of it by year, by year's end, December 31. And we can pull them, we can ask them to come in before this board if they're not in compliance with their license. Mr. Grossman, did you have something?
The chief seems to think that it couldn't be accomplished in a week to 2 weeks.
We're on
so-
Century Sportsman's Club, that's the
Oh,
first one.
I thought you were addressing the...
Yeah, no, the Century Sportsman's Club, which is the more involved egress issue. Mr. Simonian.
I would agree with that. I think I'd rather have them come here and address, the seriousness of it rather than, because I think the condition, to put the condition, we could, if that repair work isn't done, we could easily just pull the license. I would consider that, an issue that would require them to have the license pulled, and then if they complete it, they could apply for a new one. But I think to put a condition, I agree, I'd bring them here and address the seriousness of it and the time frame.
And that's your prerogative as the board. I think that there's a potential they could have the work substantially completed by your next meeting, but it depends on if we continue to have weather as we had today and how quickly they can work. Again, they did pull a permit within 7 days of being notified of the issue, so they are being responsive.
I think that shows enough good faith that they're willing to take care of it. If it doesn't,
So what's your motion, Mr. Simonian? Was that a motion?
I guess the motion would be to have a representative of the Century Sportsman's Club appear at the next selectmen's meeting and address the issue with the repairs and the license, potential condition on the license. Which would be what, today's the 9th? So that would be.
But are we approving the license? And then if they're not in compliance, we can pull the license, but I'd like to see us take some type of action on the license so we can forward it to the ABCC.
I would have no problem approving it because it seems from what Mr. Bernie said, they've shown good faith that they're willing to, complete the repairs with that, they're serious about addressing the issue. So I'd
So
make a
would it-
motion to approve the license, but I'd also like to have them come in.
Approve the license and request that if they haven't taken enough action on their license, they come into the Board of Selectmen's next meeting.
Either way, I'd like to
you
still
have
have
that,
a
Sharon?
representative come here, just to address that, it is,
Sharon, so did you get that? It's to approve the license and request that the license holder come before this board at their next meeting to address. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on Century Sportsman's Club? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted. Item 23, Major League Roast Beef.
actually, you have one.
Mrs. Brotherton, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't
That's
see that.
That's okay.
Major League Roast Beef, advice of the chief, I feel that we should give them a week to accomplish what needs to be done and have the license subject to that.
Yeah, as the chief said, it's something that they haven't rectified. It's simple, but they just haven't taken care of it. So the motion is to approve the license on the condition that they have this fire suppression system inspected within a week. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, under discussion, Mr. Simonian, then
I'm sorry,
Mrs. Brotherton.
And the fire extinguishers.
The only question I have is, you said that both last year and this year,
That's my understanding, is that they went last year.
the
They,
extinguishers weren't tagged?
Correct.
And the hood system? Or
I'm not sure about the hood system.
Okay.
I know that when they went this year, there was no tag on the hood system.
Right.
And those are tagged when they're inspected, and it certifies that it's a functional operational system.
Chief, could you? And I don't know, this may be a question for Mr. Bernie, but if this is a repeat situation, it's an annual inspection for the fire safety?
The fire extinguishers, yes, is an annual inspection, visual inspection from a company. The problem with fire extinguishers is it depends on when you open your business. There's no set, like the liquor licenses, January to December. If I open a business in March, the extinguishers are tagged March to March. So the reality is they could have done the inspection in November, they weren't set to expire in March. Unfortunately, fire extinguishers are one of those things that they fall in a cycle as far as time frame. So it's not really a surprise that you could go almost 2 years realizing that there's an issue. And the hood system is the same way. It depends on when the system is tagged and what is a year from now when the business opens.
So, but the tag on the hood system, that's just saying it has been inspected, is that correct? Or
The hood system is not only tagged for that it's been inspected, but it's also, and actually the Board of Health, I believe I saw Darlene come in, she could speak more intelligently on this than I can. There's a Board of Health issue with the hood as well, because they have to prove that it's been cleaned. And it really is, it depends on the frequency. Now, I would be willing to venture a guess that the volume that Major League Roast Beef does, and off the top of my head, without having it in front of me, I forget what class they fall into, but they would be required to have more aggressive inspections over the course of the year, potentially up to 4, depending on how active the grill is. So in their case, they may not only be behind an annual inspection over the course of a year, or 2 years, they could be behind 8 inspections and cleanings.
Okay.
So,
I appreciate you clearing that up, thank
yeah,
you.
and my recommendation would be, again, just kind of in an effort to be kind of working with the business a little bit, I would say if you're going to put a condition, I would go with 2 weeks. I would give them till the time of your next meeting, just in case they call the company tomorrow and they can't get out until Thursday or Friday, or maybe even the following week. I think giving them two weeks is reasonable till
So
your
who
next
made that
meeting.
motion? Was it Mr. Grossman's motion? We're gonna schedule it with the approval
For the next
for the
scheduled meeting.
license, and that they, and that we'll call them in at we'll schedule to call them in for our at our next meeting. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Thank you, Mr. Bernie. We're going to go back to Agenda Item 4A, petition for a pole and wire locations, National Grid Cemetery Road, a 7:15 hearing. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Any opposed? So voted. Is there the applicant here? If you could come up, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Iris Price from National Grid. We're asking permission to put a stub pole in off of Cemetery Road. We currently have a guy wire there, which is dangerous because it's going low across the road.
Okay. Do board members have any questions or comments? Mr. Holstrom?
Yeah, I took a ride up that way, and just from the paperwork we have in front of us, you're going to change an existing pole location?
No. We're going to put in a new pole. Do you have the sketch in front of you?
Yes, I do.
We're going to put a new pole in across the road from pole 3. This isn't really, it's kind of like a dirt road up there.
Yes, it is. Okay. And through the chair, because it is such a narrow road, there's going to be probably some problem with the travel of some of the neighbors in the area. Will that be tied up for very long, changing that pole over, or will you
I don't-
notify?
Where this pole is going it's in the woods.
Okay,
It's a access road in the woods. It's not the traveled way,
okay, well, then I was looking at the wrong pole, then, so now I understand where that pole was.
okay?
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Is there any public comment? Is there a motion to close the hearing?
Motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. The hearing is closed. Is there a motion regarding the application?
Make a motion to approve the pole, wire, and fixture location as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Thank you.
And thank you.
And we have Norman Baker Auto Sales Motor Vehicle License, Class 2 license at 496 Washington Street, a 7:20 hearing. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Good evening. If you could give your name for the record and tell us a little bit about what you're going to do.
Robert Baker, and I'm opening a used car lot on 496 Washington Street, and buy and sell used vehicles.
Okay. Do any members have any comments or questions?
496, what's that site?
It was
Mid-State.
Mid-State,
The small one near the Goddard School?
right next to the garden.
Oh, that little,
The small one, yeah. And did you meet with the DCG or a representative?
Yes.
Okay, so you're familiar with the conditions at the DCG?
Yep, I've applied for all the permits that's necessary,
Okay.
and went to the sewer department today to get the sewer connection permit.
Okay, so I'm just going to read them for the record. There shall be no loading or unloading of cars within the state highway layout. All loading and unloading must be done on the applicant's property. All vehicles are to be parked on paved surfaces and arranged per the approved site plan. This shall include customer and employee vehicles. The business owner shall apply for a certificate of occupancy, change of tenant, and a permit of any proposed sign alterations, including any sign refacing. There is to be no outdoor repair on the property. Parking shall be per the approved plan. The applicant's license should be limited to 11 vehicles for sale. Familiar with those conditions? Mr. Holstrom?
Through the chair, the complete description you're mentioning here is primarily for wholesale of pre-owned vehicles, minimal retail and cleanup. What does that consist of? You're going to be detailing cars?
Right now, when I first start, the detailing's all gonna be done through the auction and outside services, so I'm not gonna be doing any detailing at first.
Okay, and then one follow-up question on that. So there will not be, through the DCG, there's to be no outdoor repair on the property? Is there
That's
gonna be
correct, no
any-
repair work at all.
Not going to be any repair work at
No,
all?
no.
Thank you.
Mr. Simonian?
The only other comment I would have, is along with the conditions up from DCG, just want you to be aware that no one other than this board can allow you to alter the license or the conditions of the license. If there's anything that you want to change, you have to come back here.
Okay.
All right.
Is there any public comment? Is there a motion to close the hearing?
Motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Is there a license on the application? I mean, a motion on the
motion to
application?
approve the license, provided that all applicable requirements of the state, town, any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all of the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void with the conditions of the DCG.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm going to, because we have people waiting, I'm going to ask for a motion to move up agenda item 7A, town manager items, the senior center update on activities.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Ms. Jacobson?
Through the chair, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to move the item up as well, because there are a number of people here. I just want to reintroduce Marie Sullivan, who's our Senior Center Director and been with us since May. And she is here to give you just a presentation and update on a lot of great activities going on at the Senior Center, some new programs, some tracking activities, and I will turn the whole thing over to her. Marie.
Our formula grant, which is the main source of funding for the senior center, statistics begin July 1st. That's the fiscal year for the formula grant. And so it seemed an appropriate time. We're 5 months into the grant, into the year, and we wanted to give you an update about some of the activities at the senior center. I'd like to acknowledge Cheryl Westerman, the assistant director, is in the audience, our Council on Aging chair, Wayne Page, Bob Bro, board member from the Council on Aging, and Shirley Kemp is our outreach worker at the Council on Aging. There's a lot of activities that go on at the senior center. Just 1 second. And many of them you would consider social. I consider them brain gyms. If they're if they're playing cards and they're strategizing, they are certainly using their brains, and that's one of the most significant things that we do at the senior center. And as we go older, weekly, we have numerous activities, including canasta on Mondays, whist on Tuesdays. Just look at the numbers of people that are involved in each of these activities. Now, we have the senior center open several nights a week. On Tuesdays and Fridays, pitch is a huge game in this town and in this area. So we have the senior center open 2 nights a week for pitch, and also Wednesdays at 1 o'clock. We have bingo on Thursdays, and that's competing with Worcester Bingo, which is also on Thursday, but we get a really good crowd. Some of the people like smaller games, more intimate settings, and so we have smaller rooms, and it could be Scrabble or Trivial Pursuit on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Fridays is dominoes. And if you think dominoes is a nice, quiet little game that somebody plays, sometimes they will be laughing so hard or howling, I'll come out from my office just to check out what is so funny, and they're just having a ball. Wednesdays, a group of guys like to play pool, but the pool room is available every day of the week. Now, we know how important fitness and exercise is, so at the senior center we have all levels of fitness and exercise, something to suit anyone. One of the great advantages of the fitness program is improving our balance. And as you know, when seniors fall, that is one of the most serious things that can happen to seniors, and then the recovery rate is, it's very difficult for them. So improving any kind of balance is very, very important, and each one of these in their own way improves balance as well as many other benefits. Our most rigorous is Zumba. And you just cannot sit still with the music of Zumba. It's just fantastic. We have that twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays. Our fitness is supported through the grant. Tai Chi, we have Monday evenings. Right now it's going on. And we have yoga on Tuesdays. AVN is Auburn Visiting Nurses Exercise on Fridays. And that's on the left. And as you can see, this would be for someone who perhaps doesn't have a strong balance. So you can still work your arms and legs by sitting down and not have to worry about the balance. There's still physical exercise. And they are religious about every Friday working together. Now, the exercise strength training is on Mondays. And I'd like to point out the lady on the right. This is Virginia. Virginia is 89 years old. Virginia has been teaching fitness for 40 years and over 10 years at the senior center. She's a picture of health, and she's a real role model for our seniors. The Wii games looks like just an ordinary game. Really significant, especially for people who have had some disability. It really uses both sides of your body. It's physical, and I understand that there's quite a bit of challenge in that game. We even had a golf outing this year. It was a little small. We're going to go for a bigger golf outing next year. And one of our, this is one of our Council on Aging, newest Council on Aging members, Connie McBride. She and I went to a walking club training through Blue Cross and Blue Shield and the Council on Aging. And we are going to start a walking club using neighborhoods, using the recreation area, and so on. So that will be coming soon. And we're not waiting for the warm weather to start that. We're going to start right away. Crafts and creations. That's one of the things that people said when I first came here, we need more crafts, we need more ways to express ourselves. And so we have developed quite a variety of ways. The Knit and Stitch group meets religiously on Wednesdays. It's quite a crowd. They donated over 500 items to various local organizations, anything from chemo caps to shawls to lap shawls and so on. Quilting is new this year, and it started as a class and then has gone into a club once you finish the class, you still want to maintain the friendships that you've developed, but you also want to keep up your skills and you want to continue the craft. And so we now have quilting every Friday, and we also have piano lessons, and some of our people sing in the community. We have embroidered greeting cards is a new one, and they are just beautiful. This has caught on very well. Stop by sometime on a Tuesday to see them in action. We have also stamped greeting cards tomorrow we have holiday bracelet, making a holiday bracelet. We had appetizers come in. Tim, who is a Auburn resident, volunteered his time, and he showed us some wonderful appetizers. We hope to do more of this in the future. We have a lot of volunteers who come into the Senior Center for these programs. We do have a library and a book group at the Senior Center. The library is maintained, managed through our volunteers and our tax work-off program. It's an honor system. We get quite a few donations, which we have to manage. And our book group is quite unique. Instead of all reading the same book, they read different books, and then they come and share like little book reports. So then that also encourages them to read different types of books than they may have chosen. Technology. We firmly believe that we must close the digital divide. We must help seniors embrace technology and use technology to their best advantage. So we started a few things like an iPad. We had iPad classes. I have a new cell phone. Now what? How many times have we gotten a new cell phone and couldn't figure out how to put contacts in it? How to even answer it? We also had social media, intro to social media. But once we finished the iPad class, they were thirsty for more, which is wonderful. So we have a group that comes religiously every week, and we share any apps that we have used during the week. Now, when a teacher comes in, the teacher will talk about the kind of apps, and a youthful person would have different kinds of applications than an older adult. One of the applications that they found really interesting was that you could go to a site and you could take a picture of yourself and then try on different eyeglasses, so that when you went to purchase your next eyeglass, you had an opportunity to try on the frames right at home. Things like this. Those are useful to seniors. And the gentleman on the left is a local resident. He's 55 years old, so our volunteers go from 55 to in their 90s. And he volunteers his time and comes in and helps us out. Nutrition is very important for seniors, and through the Elder Services, we have the nutrition program, a hot, nutritious meal every day at noon. It is 1/3 the RDA for the day. So if seniors kind of skip out on those vegetables at dinner, we know they've had a good meal at lunch. It is low in sodium and fat, highly regulated, and it's diabetic friendly. Our dining manager, Patty Hubbard, has named it Young at Heart Dining Center, and they look pretty happy, don't they? Last year, we served 10,106 senior center lunches. The donation is $2. It's a requested donation. The meal actually costs closer to $7 per meal. And the second part of the nutrition program is the Meals on Wheels. Now, in addition to delivering a hot, nutritious meal to the seniors, there is a safety check. If the senior does not answer the door, if the senior does not respond that day, when the senior didn't call in to cancel the meal, there's a whole follow-up that happens to ensure that the senior is safe. And that is through Elder Services and through our Senior Center. We work collaboratively on that. So last year, in the town of Auburn, we served 19,997 Meals on Wheels served by volunteers. That's a total of 30,083 meals for our seniors last year. Now, Elder Services serves as an access point, one of 27 access points in the state of Massachusetts. So we have numerous resources with our connections with Elder Services. And in addition to that, we have an outreach program and that is funded through our state formula grant. We have our outreach worker, and then we have an outreach assistant. And they perform all kinds of support, including fuel assistance, food assistance, file of life, real estate tax exemptions, property tax work-off, and also help in locating any services that seniors might need. So we're there for the support of the seniors in every single way. Now, the health and wellness, we've had everything from flu shots, talked about spine health, managing arthritis, senior driving issues, all sorts of support for health and wellness. Coping during the holidays, caregiver support. How many of our people at home have some form of caregiving, and the holidays can be very, very stressful. That particular program was today. We do videotape them, and so that they're on the air for our seniors who are at home to participate and to benefit from these programs. We've also had Medicare boot camp, and in October we had all the health insurance companies in. It was a very confusing month for the seniors. We had fire safety come in, and they are also coming back again for the file of life, I believe. Our blood pressure clinic is the first and third Friday of every month. The social connections are important at the senior center as much as the nutrition, and we know, research tells us that seniors are happier and healthier when they are socially connected. So we have all kinds of parties. We have great time at the senior center. The winner is in the center there. She was the winner of the contest. Of the Halloween contest. We had several veteran recognitions. On the left, we were at thank you, Mary D. Stone School, and we had some interaction with the second graders, and then they talked about memories, and our seniors helped them with memories, and then you see these little blue hats that they had, well then they made a chain, a red, white, and blue chain, which we brought back to the senior center and shared. In the center, we were at Eddie Pond for the veteran recognition, and then for Veterans Day, here, this was right at the senior center just during the lunch, we sang patriotic songs, and when it got to the Star Spangled Banner, everybody stood up, and it was just really very, very heartwarming event. Those were our seniors who happened to be at lunch that day. Notice how many men we have. Many of the senior centers complain that they don't have enough men. How can they bring in men? Which we have quite a percentage of men at our senior center. There is something for everyone at the senior center, and the van transportation helps bring them there. We work with the WRTA. Last year, we had a total of 6,039 passenger trips. During the emergency, we know that the senior center is used as a cooling station, emergency shelter, and everything. So we are we have a refurbished generator. Our restroom renovation through the CIP is this winter. It will make it ADA compliant. Our front access is on the board also. And that will eliminate, there is usually an ice problem here. And so by replacing this whole front section, we will get rid of that problem. It'll be much safer. Now, this is the latest room. It used to be like a big storeroom. And an Eagle Scout project painted it and fixed it up a couple years ago. And then we're using the CIP, the rest of the CIP money, and we put in heat, we put in enough outlets so that they have, when the quilters come in, they can all plug their machines in, or we can plug in computers or iPads or whatever we need. And then we have the cooperation of 2 departments. We even had our flagpole sanded and painted this year. The cooperation of the fire department and the DPW, which was really nice. The seniors were very happy about that. Now, how do we keep it all together? We have 5 months worth of schedules set out, but even that doesn't really do it, because last year we had, since July 1st, we have had 480 different events scheduled at the senior center. So we purchased My Senior Center, which is a touch screen computer. And the seniors come in, And when they swipe their little card, like a Shaw's card, I'll show you a picture of it in a moment, it says, "Hello, Marie." This happened to be my swipe. And you can see that when I touched lunch, it puts a check there. It only shows the activities for that day, because otherwise it would be overwhelming. And it's very easy to read, even if someone has difficulty seeing. It's a little key tag, and so usually I tell them, I'll take off your Shaw's card and we'll replace it with the senior center card. And so they come in and they just swipe it, and you can see that the reactions are just priceless, because they're saying, that was easy, that worked out well. And they go home and tell their families that they worked on a computer. My senior center not only helps us with statistics, but, for example, this morning we had a cancellation. One of our programs, our exercise programs, was canceled because the instructor couldn't make it. So I could generate a voice message, very much like Code Red, and it went out to all the people who have been in that class, Zumba, and it said, today Zumba is canceled and it will resume on Thursday. So it saved people a trip to the senior center. Now, based on the pictures that you saw, what would be your guess as to how many people actually attended our programs? How many people signed in to our programs since July 1st? Go ahead, throw it out.
33,000.
Oh, proud. No, actually, it was 9,059 sign-ins since July 1st in our programs, which we think is pretty significant. Programs and events, and it was actually by 495 unduplicated persons. And this is not the FASCA. It's not FASCA trips. Last week we had 2 bus loads go out. It's not FASCA trips. It's not the dinners at night, all the FASCA events. This is purely for the Council on Aging reporting. So the numbers of participation is actually much higher. The numbers are much higher. Now, who are they? Take a look at the ages. 55 years, less than 55 is only 3%. But take a look at 80 to 90, almost 40%. It's pretty significant. And in terms of male to female, we have 30% male, which is very, very high, very high. Okay, but our volunteers are our stars because they run all the programs. Let me go back. And of course, our top volunteer is Bob Bro, who this year just won the John E. and Ethel E. Riley Outstanding Citizenship Award. Our good old Bob Bro. Bob does, you name it, Bob does it at the Senior Center, as well as the Historical Museum, and there was a third group that was that nominated Bob. We have 54 volunteers that work as program leaders. They work at reception. We no longer have our Catholic Charities receptionists. We lost both receptionists due to the program requirements. So we have, Cheryl and I are at reception as well as our volunteers, and that's it. And our dining center volunteers. Now, the 54 volunteers do not include the Meals on Wheels drivers or any of the FASCA events. So the volunteer hours as of July 1st add up to 4,054. The ages of our volunteers are from 55 to over 90, and that we know, research tells us that when people continue to volunteer through their 90s, and I know that you know some of them, they have greater feelings of well-being, lower rates of depression, and increased strength and energy. And I mean, they'll work for us 3 days a week and go to another life care center and work the other 2 days. We went to a conference on what is the future of the councils on aging. It was a national conference hosted in Sturbridge. And years ago, the chronological age and the functional age were about the same. And today you hear people saying, oh, I'm 60, but you know, everybody thinks I'm 10 years younger. I'm 10 years younger. That's the truth, because what's happened is the chronological age and the functional age are very, very far apart. And so it's our challenge at the Senior Center as we move forward to, number one, there's going to be more seniors. more older adults because of the baby boom population, but also the types of activities that we need to support is significantly different from what it had been in the past. And so that's what we're looking forward to in the future, is meeting the demands of all of those people. And I would like to take, before I finish, I would just like to recognize and acknowledge Cheryl Westerman, who, with everything that was going on at the senior center for 16 months, was both the director and the assistant director. So I'd like to acknowledge Cheryl's work. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? Mr. Holstrom?
I think it was a great presentation, very informative, and presenting here tonight on the TV, I'm hoping that more seniors in the town recognize the activities that are available to them and come forward.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it was a wonderful presentation. I know we have a very active senior population in Auburn, and it's because of programs like this. They jump from one event to another, and I'm amazed at how well they do, so thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming in and being supportive.
Thank you. I just want to thank the Council on Aging, all the work they do. As you can see from this, there was a lot going on there. They're very busy. They're always looking ahead to see what the needs are of the community and how they can meet it. And Marie and Cheryl are working great together as a team. We are having more and more events, and it becomes a challenge to try to balance the growth of the senior center and the space needs with the ability to put on more programs, because we are limited by space. So that's always a challenge. We're always working on that. But I want to thank everyone for all the work that they put into it.
Thank you. So, before we move on, I just want to check with Mr. Bernie on something.
It's a great system to have a place to be able to electronically
Excellent.
track everything like that.
Showing this here, which hasn't been done before. A lot of people comment are negative on it because they don't realize what's available to them.
That's what they should probably do it on a regular basis, so once a year, community meetings.
Before we move on with the additional license renewals, because there are a number of issues related to them, I'm going to ask that we move up item 7B, which is the Bureau of Community Risk Reduction.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Chief, if you want to come up and join us, the chief has a presentation for us as well. Thank you, Chief.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to come here and talk to you tonight about the Bureau of Community Risk Reduction. And I first want to start by saying that there are a lot of outstanding things going on within the Auburn Fire Rescue Department. I'm extremely proud to lead that organization and the men and women that work there. I'd like to acknowledge Captain Glenn Johnson, Captain Eric Otteson, and Lieutenant Justin Brigham are in the audience here this evening. They all have a role and work within this Bureau. What I want to talk about tonight is strictly related to the Bureau of Community Risk Reduction. Although we'll touch on it just briefly, we're not talking about anything tonight that's emergency operations on the fire side or the EMS side, hazardous material, any of the technical rescue disciplines that are going on within the department. we're strictly talking about community risk. And actually, I was not aware that Marie in the Senior Center was going to be here tonight, but it really is a perfect tie-in to what we're talking about tonight based on the material that we heard. So before we start, I want to read the mission statement of the Auburn Fire Rescue Department, because I think not only is it a mission that we live by daily in that organization, but any program, any initiative that we put forward, we really test it to whether or not it meets the mission of the agency. And is this what we're doing? Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing in terms of the mission? And I think as we move forward through the presentation tonight, you'll see that this Bureau was put together with the mission of the department in mind. And I'd like to just read it quickly. We are committed to provide effective emergency services and prevention through education and employee excellence with compassion and respect. So, to say that we are just a fire department or run fire prevention programs, I think it really undersells the value and the impact that we have on the community. Because as I said earlier, there's so much more going on within the department, again, not even talking about the emergency operations. And this is really why the Bureau of Community Risk Reduction was created, to really better identify and label the work that's being performed within the department, to have a stronger focus on reducing risk as a whole within the community. And Marie talked and touched on some of that with some of the work that's going on in the Senior Center that we're a part of. Now, prior to this Bureau being created, there's a few things that are new to the department in here, but these are functions that the department has been working at for many years, but it was sort of individual members working on a program here and a program here. And the advantage of putting it together under one bureau, under one umbrella, is they're now sharing information more freely. And I'll give you an example as we move forward about how when they're able to share information, they're able to tell the other people that they're dealing with in their role what other people within different divisions have for programs that may be available to them. So what is risk reduction? Well, risk reduction deals with quality of life issues in the community, not just fires. Fire prevention is obviously important. It's a large part of what the Bureau is made up of. But again, there's other things that are going on relative to risk, like Marie had mentioned. Senior falls, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but senior falls, blood pressure checks, community CPR programs, public education, those are all things that go towards the overall goal of reducing risk for the community. And if we educate and become more proactive with certain things, we can reduce the liability and we can hopefully prevent some of these injuries from occurring in the first place. So you have on page 4 here, you have the hierarchy chart of the Bureau of Community Risk Reduction, and you'll see that there's 5 divisions that fall under the umbrella of community risk. There's the Fire Prevention Division, which has the code review and enforcement component, inspectional services, and also investigations. Community CPR Division, the Hazardous Materials Tracking Division, which is the Tier 2 reporting that companies with reportable amounts of hazardous materials must report to us on an annual basis. Pre-Fire Planning Division, and Public Fire Education Division, or the SAFE programs, the Student Awareness of Fire Education, and this year, that S also stands for Senior Awareness of Fire Education. A senior component has been added to the SAFE programs. So as again, you see that there's juvenile education and senior citizen education. Now, when we talk about risk reduction and we talk about prevention, within our world, there's what's called the 3 E's. There's education, enforcement, and engineering. And it really starts, from a risk standpoint, it really starts when a plan is proposed. When someone comes to the Inspectional Services Division and they pull a building permit and they file plans and all of the various departments start to look at the plans, really at that point we're looking at the engineering. Is the building designed properly? Does it have the proper egresses? Does it have everything that it needs from a code standpoint in order to be considered safe? And then there's an enforcement component that goes along with the inspections of that. And education is obviously a big piece of that when we work through the project. But there is a 4th E, and that's the emergency response. And again, like I said, we're not going to talk about emergency response, but the reality is that emergency response is a critical component to this, because even with proper engineering, proper enforcement, and proper education, unfortunately, the reality is bad things are going to happen. And without an effective response force, you can't properly mitigate those situations. So, those 4 E's all really need to sort of work together collaboratively in order to have an effective risk program. You can't just do one. You can't just, be good at one of the E's and think that you're going to have an effective risk program. It's just not how it works. So quickly, just to talk about each of the divisions, the Fire Prevention Division is made up of 2 inspectors. This division, at one time, had 2 full-time inspectors in it. And then when one of those inspectors retired about 10 years ago, the position was never replaced. So the bulk of the work that's being done within the Fire Prevention Division is being done by one full-time inspector. And then we have another captain who's one of the shift commanders on a group. He works in that division on a half-time basis, and we basically split it down the middle, where one inspector focuses on commercial and industrial work and one focuses on residential work. So to date, as of today, the inspectors in that division have completed 1,119 inspections, both commercial, industrial, and residential. Many of these inspections are required by law, as you know, on a quarterly basis. Some are biannual, some are annual. And some are targeted inspections. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by targeted inspections. 6 weeks ago, we started a targeted inspection program, and again, we'll do this from time to time. We'll take a specific building type. Maybe it is derived from the time of year with whatever's going on. For example, pool chemicals, or so sometimes they're seasonal with these targeted inspections. But six weeks ago, we started targeted inspections on strip mall type buildings. And the reason that we did this, again, when you look at it from a risk perspective, if you have a business in a strip mall, you can be the safest person on the planet, and you can be very conscientious about what's going on within your business. But the reality is that if the person to your left and the person to your right in those businesses are not as safety conscious as you are, they're affecting your livelihood. So these types of businesses are at great risk because of, again, depends on what is going on in the property, or just the amount of tenants depending on the strip mall. It increases the potential for risk. So 6 weeks ago, we did targeted inspections on all the strip mall type buildings, and in 6 weeks, we unveiled 190 code violations that were corrected in a 6-week time period. And, although, 190 is a lot, there's no doubt about it. But the upside is that in a 6-week period, the majority, we're still doing some follow-up inspections, the majority of these 190 code violations, many of them safety-related issues in these strip malls, they've been rectified. They've been caught and they've been rectified. And that's important, because from an economic standpoint, 60% of businesses that suffer a fire never reopen. So nationwide, 60% of businesses that have a fire never reopen. So not only is it affecting the personal income of whoever it is has that business, but it is an economic impact for the community. The Worcester Envelope Company is a great example of this, and I use the Worcester Envelope Company quite frequently when I talk to the public, various clubs, or even when I'm teaching, because the Worcester Envelope Company on Millbury Street is an example of how to do it right. They've won many national safety awards. They've won many OSHA safety awards. All you have to do is walk into their lobby and look at the amount of plaques and awards that are hanging on their wall. Here's a business that takes risk reduction and takes safety of its operations very, very seriously. And when we go back to talk about the ease of prevention, this is a business that is very cognizant of working within those E's on a daily basis. But the reality is, like I said, bad things still do happen. And last year, Worcester Envelope sustained a fire in the building. During the day, it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. And if you've never been in the Worcester Envelope Company, you can only imagine that they're dealing with a lot of paper, a lot of shredded paper. There's rooms in the center of that building. There's 3 large buildings, and there's rooms in the center of that building that are as large as this room that we're in right now, with nothing but paper shreddings in them. And it's all the excess that they use for envelopes. Well, as you can imagine, it doesn't take much of an ignition source to get a room like that going. So they had a fire at about 11 o'clock in the morning one day. Fortunately, although the area did have a lot of combustibles in it, which is standard for that type of space, but all of the cleanliness and all the safety precautions that they take outside of that particular area went towards the reduction of how big that fire could have gotten. From an engineering standpoint, their sprinkler system was operational, it was up to date, it had been inspected, it worked the way that it was supposed to work. And then when you tie in the effective and efficient emergency response from the fire rescue department, we were able to come in conjunction with the sprinkler system. We had the fire under control in about 10 minutes, and we really did a good job reducing the amount of property damage that came out of that building. They lost one shift worth of work, which is, it's pretty good. I mean, if you suffer a fire in your building, you're going to have some loss. But the fact that they lost only 1 8-hour period is a testament not only to the Worcester Envelope Company, but it's a testament to our agency. And I had an opportunity today to talk to Joe, who's the CEO of the Worcester Envelope Company, and you know, he couldn't pin a dollar amount on it, but he just said, you know, if I had to shut down for even one 24-hour period, that is a huge economic loss to not only the Worcester Envelope Company, but to the town of Auburn. And again, you have to think about it a little more globally in what they do. They produce envelopes not just, you know, for local, but if you have a business, you pay them to do your mailings, stuff the envelopes, and if you're running a promotion for, let's say they're working for a company in California that's doing a promotion, the Worcester Envelope Company has to make sure that they get that product out in a timely manner to coincide with the promotion. So if they suffer a day or two loss because of an incident that really could have been prevented, or even if it wasn't prevented, something that was going to catastrophically put them out of business, that's huge. And I know a lot of times people don't consider the fire department to be sort of involved in the economic engine. But I think that's where, on occasion, some people are wrong. And I think that's something that I think about a lot in terms of the role that we play in economic development in the community. The reality is there's not a business in the community that can open without inspectional services all around. And then, but once they're here, we still have an obligation to those businesses to work with them productively to make sure that not only them, but our employees that are responding there are safe. And again, I always like to mention the Worcester Envelope Company because I think that they're a great example of a public-private partnership working together with the overall goal of reducing risk. The next program within the division is community CPR. We run 2 community-wide CPR classes per year, and that doesn't count the direct deliveries that we do to a business. There's countless businesses that call us throughout the course of a year to run CPR programs for the employees of their business, and we do that as well. The defibrillator distribution program, again, another great example of a public-private partnership. About 5 years ago, the Pappas Foundation donated 25 defibrillators to be distributed in public places throughout the community. As part of that program, they also donated what's called the Lucas device. It's an automatic CPR machine that we use on our ambulances when we have a cardiac arrest. I know that some members of the board have had the opportunity to see it at some of the health fairs that we've been at. It basically straps onto the top of a patient, and it mechanically provides compressions for CPR. Well, anybody here that's ever had the unfortunate opportunity to perform CPR on somebody, it's very taxing on the body, and you can only do good compressions for so long before the body starts to tax. These devices are very expensive, but through that partnership, in an effort to get this community CPR program up and running, we were able to purchase 2 of those devices for our ambulance. Since those devices went into service, our return of spontaneous circulation on patients that we deliver to the emergency room has increased by 55%. So 55% of the patients in cardiac arrest that we're delivering to the hospital have their own spontaneous circulation. So the survivability of the people in the community that we're able to give is huge based on that type of a program and those devices. Hazardous material tracking in Tier 2, again, annual reporting. There's about 25 facilities in the community that, by law, have to report their quantities of hazardous materials. As part of this division, that's going to require an annual inspection, and again, not required by law, required from good risk practices. We will now be visiting these facilities on an annual basis to ensure their storage compliance, and also firefighter safety issues. And again, think about why they're reporting in the first place. They're reporting because they have considerable amounts or dangerous amounts of hazardous materials. So those are obviously beneficial things that we know for our firefighter safety. When we respond to these facilities, we know what and where these hazardous chemicals are stored. And that ties right in with the pre-fire planning division. We have several firefighters in the department. As part of our routine training, on a monthly basis, we tour and pre-fire plan a building a month. And we started several years ago by identifying the top 10 target hazards that we had in the building. From a firefighter perspective, what are the top 10 most dangerous buildings that we have in the community that pose a risk to us? And that's really where we started. And as we've moved down the road, we have close to 60 buildings pre-fire planned, kind of using that step process. So we do company-level inspections and tours, not only to give the firefighters familiarity with the inside of the building, but we pre-fire plan it with emergency contacts. Where are the fire suppression systems? Where are the hydrants? Where are the chemicals? All of those types of things. And then that information is housed in the mobile data terminals, in the laptop computers, in the engines. So that information is accessible to all of the shift commanders and myself once we're on scene. Public education, again, the student and senior awareness of fire education. The senior piece is new this year. Captain Johnson, who's in the audience, he heads this program. He does a phenomenal job with it. And then there's 5 other members in the department who work in this division as well. And they provide juvenile education to the schools, all of the public schools, station tours. This is the program that our annual poster contest is derived from. We do daycare visits. And this year, we're actually expanding these types of juvenile programs, not only for the younger school-age kids, but we're going to be getting into, for the first time this year, into the middle school and the high schools, talking about safety issues that affect young adults, like dorm room safety and fire safety in dorm rooms. So this year, we'll be introducing those types of juvenile programs as well. Senior citizen education. We continue to work with the seniors on home fire safety. Cooking is the #1 cause of residential fires in the United States, and senior citizens are the most susceptible to that. Over 60% of the residential fires, cooking fires that happen a year, is someone from 65 or older. So the seniors are a very susceptible population. As part of the Senior Safe grant that we got this year, the department will be doing, for the first time ever, there's a small portion of the grant that's going to allow us to do a smoke detector installation program for seniors. In the amount of ambulance calls that we do going into elderly homes, it is scary to see the amount of senior citizens in the community that still do not have working smoke detectors in their homes. So unfortunately, it's not going to, we're not going to be do a lot, maybe 20 to 25 homes we estimate, but it's a start. It's a start, and we'll continue to seek alternate funding to try to increase that number of homes. We continue to do blood pressure clinics not only at the senior center, but anytime a senior can stop at the fire station and have their blood pressure checked. And we will provide them with a card where they're able to track their blood pressure, and we see seniors on a regular basis. The reality is that in some respects, we may be the only health care that a senior has. And so we do see regulars that come in, for us to monitor their blood pressure. We talk about their medication list. We go over medication safety. We go over the file of life, provide them with file of life cards. So it's a very important program for the seniors. And as Marie mentioned, fall prevention. Fall prevention is a big deal. Not only, did Marie mention that if a senior does fall, it can be very timely for them to recoup, if they are able to recoup. In the past 2 years, we have responded to 646 falls, senior-related falls in 2 years. Okay, so think about that. That's over 300 senior-related falls per year. Is there anything that goes on in a community other than emergency call numbers? But think about that number 300 and what that, if we do 300 of anything, that's huge. You know, if we get 300 complaints, that's a problem. You know, if we do 300 of this, it's a potential problem. 300 falls is potentially reaching epidemic-type proportions where this is a big deal to our seniors. And I truly believe that with the proper education, the proper engineering, and the proper enforcement when we go out and deal with these things, I believe that this number can be reduced. And I think we have a lot of work to do until we do reduce these numbers. Lastly, I just want to touch on customer service, because I truly don't believe that we can pull anything like this off without phenomenal customer service and customer satisfaction. Within the fire rescue department, we send out customer satisfaction cards to almost everybody that we have interactions with. So every emergency ambulance call that we go to, they are mailed a customer satisfaction card where we invite them to go to our website, click on the customer satisfaction link, and we want to know, how did we do? This program's been very successful, so they can, and again, regardless of what their call was, whether it was a fire, an ambulance, some other service that we provided. And on the inspection side, every inspection interaction, the inspectors are handing them a customer satisfaction card, inviting them to go and fill out a separate survey relative to the inspectors. And I didn't want to go over the entire questions that are on the list, but the three that you have on your paper are for me, the three most important ones when it comes to talking about reducing community risk. The first one was our inspectors polite and courteous? Because you can't educate people unless you're polite and courteous. So that's huge. If you look at the numbers, 100% of the people that have reported and filled this survey out said our inspectors were either very polite or extremely polite. And then the other two questions that I think are extremely important is, did the inspector explain any violations found and why they need to be corrected? And then the other one was, did the inspector make recommendations to help meet the requirements of the code? Because at the end of the day, that's what this is about. When we're talking about reducing risk, did we explain to you what violations we found and educate you as to why they need to be corrected? And did we make recommendations to help you get there? You know, did we work with you within the code to make reasonable accommodations if those needed to be done in order to correct it? So again, for me, those are the three most important questions on that card, because providing we're doing these three things, risk will be reduced. And ultimately, that's the goal. So again, the goal of the Bureau of Community Risk Reduction is to improve the quality of life, and that's what it's about. It's about the quality of life of our residents and to have a strong relationship within the business community to focus on risk reduction. So again, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to come tonight and talk to you about the new Bureau of Community Risk Reduction. I'll be certainly happy to entertain any questions that anyone has.
Are there any questions, comments? Mrs. Brotherton?
Thank you very much, Chief. That was certainly a wonderful presentation, and I certainly am amiss because Marie certainly needed compliments to her way, too. I think as an Auburn resident and as a Board of Selectmen, I am very proud to say that we have many great leaders, and as of tonight, Marie and yourself, Chief, have really proven to us that we're there, we're working for our residents, and kudos to both. Very heartwarming. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very
And
much.
please keep all my firefighters and our public safety workers in your prayers for safety. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Simonian?
Yeah, I just had one question. First of all, good information, thank you, and that's great work. When you talked about the education piece, the reaching out to the seniors and the young, do you have the opportunity to have, I'm sure it's a different environment, if you go to a business to do an inspection, you're there looking for possible violations, but do you have the opportunity to kind of outside of that arena, talk to the businesses and also educate them on things that could potentially, you know, be harmful to the site or, you know, as you said, to you and the staff and have those conversations, because I would think from the educational standpoint, that would benefit you as well.
There's 2 points to that. One, I always make myself available to the Chamber of Commerce, you know, to come and talk at their breakfast or anything that they want to do. I've done many business-related presentations. Inspections can be difficult because you're there, especially depending on why you're there, and that's sort of a tricky thing. If we're there for a complaint, I'm a firm believer that there's always room for education. There's always some way that you can educate. Sometimes it's not possible, depending on how we wound up there. That's why I love the pre-fire planning program, because the pre-fire planning program is really us reaching out to them and saying, hey, we'd love to come to your business. We'd like to, and usually we have to schedule 4 appointments. So usually we try to do it 4 days in a row, so all the working groups are able to attend. And we make 4 separate visits to the business. We talk to the business owner. We talk about why we're there, why it's important for us to see what's inside the business. We sort of, it's not really an inspection. I mean, certainly if we see something, that's really the opportunity to educate. And we've built some tremendous relationships with the business community by that pre-fire planning program, and it helps everybody. It gives us a better understanding of what's in the facility. It gives them an opportunity to sort of, in some respects, show their business off a little bit. And they always walk away. We always walk away, and they always walk away learning something. So I think from a value standpoint, that's the biggest value we get from an educational standpoint is that particular program. Inspections, again, depending on why we're there, but there's usually room for education there as well.
Excellent. That's why I asked if you had other opportunities outside, so that's great.
We're always looking for opportunities to educate and get involved in the business community, so it's something we strive to do every day.
And I too want to thank you for the presentation. As we've discussed, your department is so much more than just putting out fires. And, when we get good information out, people have a better understanding of it. But on another subject, I also want to compliment you on the Facebook and Twitter pages. I'm hearing from a lot of residents how helpful it is to have those accident update and traffic condition reports, especially when you're leaving your house in the morning and, you have the opportunity to know where there's an accident or where there's a traffic issue. So good things are being said about that as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well done, Chief. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all for being
Thank
here
you very
tonight,
much. Have a good evening.
Good job.
Thank you. I also just want to take a moment just to thank Chief Coleman and the entire fire department, only some of whom are here tonight, but they are so proactive in their approach to community risk reduction and what they've done. But not only that, just their dedication and commitment to the town of Auburn. It's incredible, and we are so lucky. And I want to thank all the selectmen and Mrs. Brotherton for the comments that you made. We have a tremendous team. And as you can tell, we have a tremendous team because we have dynamic leadership and we have committed employees at every level in town. And we couldn't ask for a better working group, better employees for the town of Auburn. And tonight we had the opportunity to see just 2. But I think that any one of our departments and divisions, if you were to go into them and talk to them, they would be able to show you excellent success stories and how we are putting tax dollars to work for this community every single day. So I want to thank the chief. It was a great presentation, and the other firefighters and the member of the department who are here tonight. Thank you for everything you do.
Great. Thank you.
Great.
We have just a couple more items here. We're going to move on to Board of Selectmen items, and we're back to 6A, which is the annual license renewals. You have the list of the annual license renewals, and as you know from the liquor license renewals, the DCG and Inspectional Services has been working hard to be sure that that our license holders are in compliance with their conditions before we renew. So Mr. Burney is also going to be heard on some of these. Good evening.
Good evening.
Again, thank you for waiting.
No problem. So the other, I guess, general issue we had is with a class of licenses, not specifically any one business. and it's the Class 1 and 2 licenses for the sale of new and used motor vehicles. As you are all aware, we have one or two of these in town, and over the past 6 or 8 months, the fire department and the building division have been working to visit these dealerships and work on compliance with the storage and parking of vehicles. Everybody wants to have every model in every color with every package so that when somebody comes to buy a car, they can say, we have it, and they can sell it to them. We recognize that, and we understand the desire to do this. The concern for a long time has been compliance with not only the zoning bylaws, but also with safe practices of parking. So the building inspector, Nick Antanovica, and the fire prevention officer, Captain Steve Anderson, had gone and visited these facilities, identified where their concerns were at all these locations, and worked with each of the either general managers or site managers to put together a plan of corrective action. On November 18th of this year, the building inspector sent a letter to all dealerships in town, both Class 1 and 2, identifying that this was their last notice. Most of them had been complying, but in order to be fair, they were all notified, and that he is going to start looking for very specific items next time he stops at dealerships. And they are the parking of cars in fire lanes and entrances, sidewalks, or on the grass. Those are really the heart of all of the issues. So we want to bring it to your attention that this is something that we've been working to correct for the safety of the residents, people who come to town to buy cars, and the people who work at these facilities, and look to possibly have you add the parking requirements to the license. I know you have abide by all boards and commissions. Some of these facilities have had licenses going back before DCG existed, so they may not be fully aware that it could be a condition of their license that they be parked in approved spaces, they be not parked on unpaved surfaces, these kind of things. And the other issue that has come up is the number of vehicles permitted for each site. Generally, licenses have had a number attached with them. Historically, that number has not been on the license, nor has it been readily available when an inspector goes to one of these retail locations. What we would ask is that the license prominently display the number of cars attached to that license, and that the license holder be required to display it in a conspicuous place within the dealership. This does two things. It lets the manager or owner of the dealership know what their limit on for sale vehicles is, and it also allows an inspector who comes on site, identifies a potentially dangerous or congested site, to identify how many cars are allowed and verify that they're not overstocking a lot. So again, I don't think that there's any specific dealership that requires punitive action at this time, but we're looking to be proactive to provide them with that information so that in the future, when it comes to progressive discipline or corrective action, they can't say, well, we didn't know, or this isn't something that we were made aware of. We want to get out in front of it.
Do any members have any comments or questions for us? Mr. Simonian?
Just one. Regarding the number of vehicles, I thought that was always part of the conditions. Because I just point to the one earlier tonight, that specifically stated 11 vehicles as the condition of the license.
That's correct on new licenses. And I think that it's only been within the last 3 or so years that the DCG has been recommending a number of vehicles per license. I know that we received a call about a dealership in town a week or two ago. In reviewing that file from when the license was transferred, there was no number attached to the new license, and the old license went back 35 or 40 years, and there was there wasn't a stated number as a condition of the approval in the application. There was a number that was sort of put forward by the applicant, and that has morphed into what the approved number is.
Go ahead,
If
Mrs.
we,
Sweeney.
I'm not sure, I guess I would ask through the chair to the town manager possibly, if we were, if that wasn't specifically stated on all the licenses, and we then alter that business's license, what are the repercussions of us? If there's no specific condition or requirement that you can only have 40 cars, and we now say 40 is your limit after you've been operating for X amount of years, what are our repercussions? Because I don't want to.
Through the chair, I would have to look into that, because that could be a legal issue. It's past practice. It would probably depend on the length of the license.
And I think that the position that we come from is that these sites have approved site plans. They have a stated number of spaces. That number of spaces has to meet a certain parking requirement. So that parking requirement, or the number of spaces less that parking requirement, should give you a firm basis for identifying what the number is. I do know that, and again, if it's a case where we can't come up with an identifiable number, then that's probably an exception to the rule. Where there is a number that was either stated on an original license or perhaps a condition of a previous approval, we just want it put on the license prominently and requirement that that be displayed. If there isn't a number attached, then that's something we would have to work between the town departments and the business owner to identify what's reasonable and what we can come to as a consent, what a consensual number would be.
I understand, and that's, I don't have an issue with, exploring that. I just look at it from the standpoint of if there is nothing specific, is there an existing vehicle that the state provides or whatever it is that we can, do that or have that discussion with the business owner and say, hey, it's a safety issue because you have X amount of spaces and you really have more vehicles than what, the spaces, all those things. So before we get ourselves, the town into a position where we're doing something we shouldn't, I'd just rather explore, what we have at our avail to make that, or have those conversations, or, make any license changes if there's an approved process, whatever it be. It seems, off the top of our head, no one knows if that exists, so that's.
No, and I recognize that, and it's a valid concern. It's something that we've sort of had other offline discussions about, and I don't think that we're asking you, and maybe I misstated and misspoke. We don't want you to go through each license and say, they have to have this many, they have to have this many. We want to use the existing information. If it's been previously conditioned, or if it's in the application packet, that be included on the front page of the license that's issued, and that the condition be that license be displayed. In the instance where we come across ones that don't have that, I think those conditions can still be included holistically across the board, and we can work with those individual dealerships to identify what number is going to be acceptable to the town and acceptable to the dealership.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes, I think you eliminate the legal issue by a review each year. Each license has to be reviewed at that point in time. If something needs to be addressed, it can be addressed, and you don't have a legal issue because you're addressing it with the issuance of a license. So it can be done on an annual basis, and if something hadn't been done for a number of years, then it can be addressed upon renewal date.
Mr.
Through
Simonian?
the chair, I understand what you're saying, but I would, to me, if I was the business owner, that would still be the town modifying conditions or putting new conditions on my license, because if I've been operating for X number of years, I'm just renewing that license. I'm not applying for a new one. New one, I can certainly, and if we have existing ones that had a specific number, I have no problem with that being prominently displayed so that everybody understands this is the maximum amount. But if we're, you know, looking down that road of, we're gonna make a change where there's no specific number given, that I think is something we should certainly, you know, like the town manager said, should look into it. I think that's our best bet right there, is to make sure that we.
So we're referring right now to all Class 1 and Class 2 licenses only, correct? And did you just say that, that all Class 1 and Class 2 licenses have some type of approved site plan, which would have?
In theory, we've identified, and as part of Nick and Captain Anderson going through the inspections on the sites, they've identified some site plan somewhere. And that's what they've been using as the approved plan. Whether it's from the Selectmen's office when they applied, if it was prior to the existence of site plan approval, or whether it's through the planning board files for site plan approval. So, and I wasn't intimately involved in that process, and Nick would be here tonight, but he's home ill. So my understanding is they have a site plan for each of those sites. Thus, we can identify that as the approved plan and move from there.
So if you have an identified site plan approved, then you're not just coming up with a number and now
Correct.
creating a number. What you do is look back at that site plan approval, which would have identified employee parking, you know, so many spots for employee parking, so many handicap, so many display.
In theory, you're correct. You know, I think that the older dealerships may not have that explicit detail, but I think that there's a way to work with them to identify how to do that.
You know, in moving forward tonight, I know we've had a lot of conversations, and this is, you know, one of the Board of Selectmen's goals, as, you know, as we've discussed, to be sure that, you know, when we're issuing these renewals, that we're sure that everyone's in compliance. So I, just in discussing, is it best to approve these licenses tonight? And I took some notes while you were speaking, with the condition, you know, with conditions on the license, you know, approved parking plan, no parking on unpaved surfaces, no parking in fire lanes, no unloading or loading on state highways. And then I would also add at the end, any and all conditions previously placed on this license, and the license must be prominently displayed with, what's the language, for the vehicles?
Including the number of approved vehicles. And, you know, I think that the location of that is something that could potentially be done internally.
Okay.
And I don't know that necessarily needs to be a condition on the license, maybe the display of the license prominently, and then we can work with the town manager's office to identify the best way to place that number on the license.
You know, and I don't think if we move forward with this tonight, including having the license prominently displayed with the number of licenses, this is a renewal, and if there are any issues, there's always an opportunity, if the board were to take action, for a hearing on any alleged
That's correct.
license
Yeah.
violation. So it's not that we're looking to take anyone's license tonight.
No.
We're just trying to be sure that everyone's in compliance with their license.
That's correct. And from our perspective as the DCG, we were actually hoping you would move forward with the license renewal tonight, because I don't know that it's necessarily something that needs to be held up. And I think that internally, we can, between the building division, the fire prevention division, and the town manager's office, identify what those numbers are, and in the following weeks, the processing of those licenses will include what those numbers are. And again, if there are no identifiable numbers, then we'll cross that bridge as we come to it. But I think that we're not looking to come and place a random number. We want it to be reasonable.
Right. And, you know, I know we've had this discussion as well, and you had told me that Nick had just sent out the letter, but anytime, you know, you feel it's necessary for the board to draft a letter as a licensing authority, you know, that's certainly something that we can put on the agenda.
Sure.
Or, you know, if there are ongoing issues with license holders to ask them to come in before the board.
Well, and I don't know if you all have seen the letter or not, but it does sort of outline some progressive discipline. Nick's approach with the dealerships has been, all right, this is, we've educated you, we've worked with you, we've done re-inspections. At this point, when he goes out, if he finds something in non-compliance, each vehicle that's in, parked in a fire lane, parked in an entrance, parked on an unpaved surface, the dealership will receive a ticket for that. They have so long to correct the action, pay the ticket. The next time he goes and he finds violations, every car that's not in an approved space would receive a ticket. And then he's giving them a third strike, which would be, he would recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they send out a letter asking for a hearing and sort of inform them of the progress over the past period of time, whatever it might be. So I appreciate that the board's position. What we want to do is not threaten their license to start with. We want to sort of be officer-friendly to start.
Right, but as the licensing authority, we at least want to be aware of what's going on with these licenses.
Yeah, and again, a lot of this has been code issues that they've been working on that are part of the license, I guess, and that they wanted to work within the code first, and everybody has been responsive.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, why they haven't looked to have the board start threatening licenses.
It just, it amazes me, as many dealerships that have been in before us, how often we still see unloading and loading on the state highways.
And
we know that it's all,
that's the hardest
auto
one to
road,
catch.
Auto mile on Route 20, but it's frightening to see them unloading and loading the cars on the state highway. So do members have any more comments or questions on this? So again, on these, what I'd like to do is pull out anything that's related to Class 1 or Class 2 licenses, take action on those, and then if the board is willing, take action on the Class 1 and Class 2, and include language, and I can read it again, vehicles must be parked according to the approved parking plan, no parking on unpaved surfaces, no parking in fire lanes, no unloading or loading on state highways, must meet any and all conditions previously placed on this license, and the license must be conspicuously posted with the approved number of vehicles. So, yes, Mr. Simonian.
Are those already conditions on the licenses, or?
They are, but we want to make it very clear to them that we're working with inspectional services and enforcement to be sure. These are, as you know, what's come before this board since we've been on this board are part, their conditions on their license. But it's just, I guess, an awareness, working with enforcement to let them know that as a licensing authority, we're aware that there's issues with this, with parking in fire lanes, parking on grassy areas, which would be covered by the no parking on unpaved surfaces, and that this board will be looking to take action. Mr. Bernie?
And I think it's a combination of things. I think the newer licenses, these are conditions on, and I think there's also a number of dealerships who've been here for several decades that these may or may not have been original conditions, and so it's sort of making parity amongst all of the dealerships. All of the conditions now would be the same.
Mr. Simonian?
I have no problem with any of that at all, and I think the progressive approach is a good one. The only exception that I have to that I don't think I would separate out from that and not give 3 chances. If there's a business that's habitually blocking fire lanes with vehicles, I think 3 times is too many. That's a safety issue, that's a potential life-threatening issue. I have several friends who are firefighters, and I've heard it over the years many times. That's one of the biggest problems they face with when there's a fire in an establishment, is vehicles parked in a fire lane, and it just impedes the whole, so that one I don't think would be a three strike. To me, that's, if you're blocking fire lanes habitually, I would have no problem with disciplinary action immediately as far as the license goes.
I mean, I can certainly pass that on to the building inspector. That's in his purview, so I'm not going to
No, I
dictate,
understand.
but I will certainly pass that along to him.
I mean, I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that, but that one right there, I just think that's just too much of a potentially life-threatening problem to give three chances there. So, you know, any other comments that anyone on the board has about that, I'd be happy to listen to, but that's my opinion on the block and the fire lane issue. So.
Do any members have anything else? Mrs. Brotherton?
Yes, through the chair, I'm sorry, did that also include sidewalks?
Yes, it did.
Yes.
So that would be added, Madam Chair, into,
Approved parking plan, unpaved surfaces. I guess technically sidewalks are paved, so we could put
Okay.
no parking on sidewalks
oh,
as
okay,
well.
I wasn't quite sure if I heard correctly. Thank you.
Okay, so if we're ready to take action on this, first I'd entertain a motion to separate the licenses into classes, motor vehicle class 1 and 2 first of the list here.
So motion to address the Class 1 and Class 2 licenses
Right.
separately.
Right, which are number 1, 3, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 24.
Yeah, not 20.
Not 20? Oh, sorry. That's why I just took my glass off. 21, 24, 31, 35, 37, 50, 53, 57, 60, 73, 93, 94, 98, 102, 104, 111, 116, and 120.
So, all right.
To make a motion to approve the licenses
To make
based on the conditions.
Make it clear, I'll motion to approve the Class 1 and Class 2 licenses as indicated on the
On this-
list before us, with the conditions that have been previously read and agreed upon.
Second.
You have all those conditions, Sharon?
I'm going to have to get you.
Okay.
I do for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he meets it, but the deal that we also voted, his license tonight, also should be included in that list.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. We just approved that,
Yeah, we
but,
approved it. It should be part of the main
okay, we'll
list.
take that separately.
Don't we typically, doesn't he have to do a renewal anyway? Isn't it
He's gonna have to.
just for X amount of time till, so he has to renew?
He's going to have to be put on the list after he renews.
Yeah,
Well, then,
yeah, so we'll take action at that time.
Put one at that point, yeah.
Right. So is there any further discussion on those? Do you have anything else, Mr.
I do
Brody,
not.
before we take a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted.
Thank you very much.
So the rest of the license renewals, there were no...
There were no other issues on the
issues,
license
right?
renewal.
Okay,
Thank you all.
you're welcome. So now to take action on the remainder of the
Motion
licenses.
to approve all of the licenses.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, so voted. And we still have licenses coming in, right, for our next meeting? There are more, but they do have until December 31, so. Okay. Let's just check where we are, because we've jumped back and forth. We're going to start pledge, hearing, communications, licenses. There are no gift acceptances. There are no proclamations. I had put on December meeting. I don't have a calendar in front of me. Do you have a calendar? Jacobson? The 23rd, and what's the other one? So we will be meeting on December 23rd. We'll have additional license renewals, and license holders have until December 31 to get their renewal request in. If we have requests that come in between the 23rd and when we have to post the 30th, then I think we need to meet, because we've given them till December 31st to get their license renewal in. So we may be meeting on the 30th if we have outstanding license renewal requests. Otherwise, there won't be much on the agenda, and we will not meet that 5th Monday. Mr. Grossman?
And those licenses will not be issued. We've had some instances in past years where they've gone through the spring before they've paid for their license. And we should hold to it like everyone else has to
Yeah.
on the end of the year.
Anyone who doesn't have a license renewal will be operating without a license, and will take any necessary action at that time. Okay, so we have member items, and we have Mr. Simonian, general discussion on all aspects of Board of Selectmen policies. I know we had this at the last meeting.
Just a few things, and we can address them separately. We had, at our October 28th meeting, there was a closing comment regarding selectmen policies and Robert's rules, and the innuendo seemed to be that we weren't necessarily following that. So all of these comments will be through the chair, and I'd just like to point out that Robert's rules is very clear as far as the challenging of any statements made by members, and comments not personal, they are not considered personal attacks. So, from a policy standpoint, the first one that I want to address is our legal policy. According to our legal policy that was voted, no Board of Selectmen member shall engage the services of general counsel or labor counsel unless authorized by a majority vote of the Board of Selectmen. In the event that a Board of Selectmen member has an urgent legal matter that needs to be addressed prior to the next scheduled meeting, said member shall get permission from the chair, or in his or her absence, the vice chair, in consultation with the town manager. So, our legal policy as read, in my opinion, was violated by the board a few weeks ago, November 7th, I believe it was. We had an open meeting to go into executive session, and I'm not going to address executive session because it's for obvious reasons, but this was an open session. My contention was that legal counsel was there without the authorization of this board, and 4 members of this board felt differently and agreed to allow the meeting to continue with legal counsel present. Our policy makes it clear that no one will speak to legal counsel unless the Board of Selectmen authorizes it by vote.
With the exception that you read.
The only exception is,
If an urgent legal matter.
well, that was not an urgent legal
Well,
matter. Okay, that's fine, fair enough.
Hey, excuse me, Madam Chair, point of order here. From our last meeting, one of the things we had talked about is we were going to be talking about policies at any point. There would be specifically related summaries somehow that let us know that we could all reasonably speak on a specific policy. And it sounds like we're getting into a specific policy tonight and not just a general discussion on all aspects of Board of Selectmen policy. So I find a little bit of a problem with discussing that tonight because I'm not properly prepared to discuss it.
I would disagree. I'm giving specific examples that of, we've had discussions in the past of policies not being followed. This is examples of general policies that, in my opinion, were not followed. That is the discussion that we're having. And as far as the comment of not being prepared, I mean, 2 weeks ago, I had this on the agenda, and I had made a mistake in something that I had in my notes, so I postponed it, and Mr. Holstrom made it clear that he was prepared to speak on this. So if he was prepared 2 weeks ago, I don't understand why he's not prepared tonight.
So I'm going to address Mr. Holstrom's question and then follow up on yours. At our last meeting, yes, the request did come in that if we were going to discuss specific policies, that you were willing to let members know which specific policies you were discussing. When you sent your member item in, when asked if you were going to discuss specific policies, you were very clear that no, you weren't going to discuss specific policies. It was just the procedure of Board of Selectmen policies.
Right, and this speaks to that procedural policy not being followed.
You know, I guess.
My intent was not to restrict this conversation, to open it up to to policy. We've voted on policies that members of this board have been adamant we needed, and yet those policies are repeatedly violated.
Well, I'll just say, in your opinion, they've been violated.
Okay, in my opinion, I mean, okay.
In your opinion, it was
When I
violated,
get to
and had we had the opportunity to know which policy we were discussing, whether it be, the legal or the agenda, whatever it may be, members could be prepared. But I mean, I expected this tonight anyway, the legal issue, but. And I'm going to allow it because I'm not going to allow you to continue to say that the board has violated policies because it's your opinion.
It's a fact.
It's not a fact.
I just read the policy. The policy says that legal counsel is not supposed to be present unless a vote of this board is taken.
Point of order, Madam Chair. We're getting into specifics again, and this, from what I can see on member items tonight, was general discussion on all aspects of the Board of Selectmen policy. So that would identify to me the process of putting a policy in place, and not a discussion on any specific policy, because it sounds like if we get into discussion on specific policies, it sounds like a workshop.
It's
And
not a
I don't think any of the board members tonight are able to discuss that reasonably, and I would make a motion that we would move this on and postpone this to a future meeting where that summary could be
Point of order.
given to us so that we could...
Mr. Holstrom has a motion on the
we could
floor.
get that done.
Before we move on, is there a second on the
Point of order.
motion?
You cannot call a point of order and then put a motion on the floor. Robert's rule specifically prohibits it. He can't do it. Point of order. It cannot be done. He cannot interrupt the discussion with a point of order and then put a motion on the floor. It cannot be done.
I don't have Robert's rules in front of me, I can't.
No, you can move a question under point of order, which is very similar. Mr. Host, might ask you that you allow, with the chair's approval, the continuation of this discussion on the legal issue, because I really don't want it left out there that this board has violated its own policy without having the opportunity to discuss it, because this board did not violate its own policy.
Again, we're getting into specifics, and unless we have a ruling on exactly what the policy says, I'm not ready to discuss it tonight.
You have your policies right in front of you, as you indicated at the last meeting. It's right there.
Yeah, I don't know.
This is just another attempt to censor me. That's all it is.
That's
Plain and simple. It's absolutely.
This board operates, Mr. Simonian, under policies and Robert's Rules of Order.
You're right.
And the open meeting law. It's not censorship.
It's a fair discussion of what this board has done in violation of its own policy.
It's a fair discussion, and I don't understand why you knew you wanted to have this discussion. You knew
Because
you
I
wanted,
have-
you knew you wanted to have this discussion tonight, weren't you? Why weren't you willing to just put the information out there to give members the
Because I
opportunity?
had several different things, so there was nothing
Then,
specific.
then you
It was-
list it on the agenda.
It's a general discussion of policies.
Accusing this board of violating its policy is not a general discussion, on a specific date, at a specific meeting.
This agenda item addresses policies that we have voted in and not followed.
We're going to move off the legal issue for right now. Do you have something else? A
Yeah.
general statement?
Well, all of my general statements go to policies. I
Go
mean-
to specific policies?
Well, no. I can, we've had discussions, regarding policy. Sure, let's move on.
I didn't say we're moving off of it, I said we're moving on.
Okay.
So I can get a better sense of where you are with this agenda item, because it's not a general discussion on all aspects.
Okay, we've, several agenda items that, and this speaks to the generality and subjectiveness. Several agenda items that I've asked to be placed on the agenda have been denied, indicating that they weren't clearly defined, on the basis that members of the board, as well as the public, will be given an opportunity to clearly define the item for which to prepare. Members of this board have been adamant, and I give specific example. Just a few months ago, at a public meeting, there was an agenda item that would have been impossible to prepare for. The sycophantic chair of the school committee was allowed to put an agenda item stating Auburn High School discussion, which could breach several topics. There was no way to prepare for anything that he was about to say, and yet he was allowed to use that opportunity to personally attack me. Now, I have had substance of my commentary that have had absolutely the same content as what he said, and I've been gavelled for personal attacks. Yet he was allowed to continue on for roughly 30 minutes, reading excerpts and imposing his own opinion during that discussion. That was a pretty broad agenda item. No way to prepare for it. It was allowed to continue. But again, tonight, I wasn't specific enough, so we're not going to continue. We're not going to talk about it. We voted on a cell phone policy that members of this board were adamant was absolutely necessary. I believe some of the commentary was it was rude, and yet, and this is a fact, whether you refute it or not, since we voted on that policy, there has been one meeting, which was the meeting after the policy was voted in, that someone at this table did not have a cell phone out or use it. Every single meeting,
I haven't seen anyone use a cell phone.
well, you were one of them. So,
Unless I was checking a time for a hearing, I'm not using a cell phone.
but here's the thing. I brought that up during a discussion, that there have been times, and it was made clear, there should be no reason for us to ever use a cell phone. So we put these policies in place, and then we don't follow them. The legal one is another one. We made it clear. The argument was that taxpayer money could be wasted by multiple people contacted, so everything was gonna go through this board. And yet, I come to a meeting, there's town council, why is he here? I called him. The board didn't vote on it.
Okay, so I'm going to be very, very careful with this, because it does involve executive session.
I'm talking
The
about
second-
the open session
the-
specifically.
And I'm being very careful with
Okay.
your allegation. The second part, can I use this for a minute? In the event that a Board of Selectmen member has an urgent legal matter that needs to be addressed prior to the next scheduled meeting, said member shall get permission from the chair in his or her absence in consultation with the town manager. Mr. Simonian, you called me and raised, in your words, a very serious legal matter that needed to be addressed immediately.
And it was addressed 3 weeks later, so in that
No,
3 weeks
no,
time.
no, you told me that that issue needed to be addressed immediately, that you alleged that there was an illegal vote of this board.
And you said,
And I said to you, I will contact council.
not true.
Well, no, of course not true, because I didn't have a
Your
witness
exact
to our
words back to-
conversation.
Your exact words back to me were, would you be comfortable with me talking to council and possibly having them at a meeting? And I specifically, you asked, and I specifically said that we had to have a vote of the board. It wasn't up to me. That was the crux of that conversation.
Was that the crux or exact? Because you said that was exact.
That was basically what we talked about.
Well, I mean, we can play he said, she said, but you raised a serious legal matter.
You're right.
I told you that I would contact council, and either I or council would get back to you.
Okay.
And that was it.
And no one did. But you never said, at any point did you say, I'm going to have council present for this executive session? No. Did you bring it before the board? No. It was your decision. You said so that night. I asked, under whose authority is town council here? You said under mine. As far as I'm concerned, our policy says it has to be a majority of the board that allows town council to be here for any reason. So basically, we charge the taxpayers to have town council here that evening for X amount of hours, and the board didn't authorize it. So they're on the hook for however many hours we were billed that night for something the board didn't authorize. And now, the argument that you're making is the exact argument I made when we brought that policy up, and I specifically said, there will come a time when we will find ourselves in a position where it is not convenient to convene this board and vote to have town council present at something, and 4 members of this board said, nope, you're crazy, absolutely not, we're putting this policy in place.
Well, and we certainly can revisit the legal policy, but, and again, I don't know that members are prepared to discuss this because we weren't discussing specifics, but certainly, any chairman of a Board of Selectmen has to have reasonable legal access to counsel. When we had this discussion, it was a concern that individual members were going on their own, and you may have 2 or 3 members go to council for the same issue, not knowing that they are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, there are legal issues that come before this board that the chairman has to address.
Exactly the argument that I made before this policy was voted. And you all said, absolutely not. No single person on this board will take legal matters into their own hands. Everything will go through this board. No single person. The chair was not given carte blanche to go talk to. It was all of us, regardless of the position on this board, we're all elected here, we all represent the public, we all have one vote, and that's it. So that policy, I warned you guys at the time that it would come a time when it would be inconvenient to have that policy. This is the time. And you made the decision to have town council there without a vote of the board. I don't know how that's not a violation of the policy.
Mr. Grossman.
I'd just like to reiterate so that everyone at home knows the board policy. Under section 100, he is correct, no boards of selectmen member shall engage the services of general counsel or labor counsel unless authorized by a majority vote of the Board of Selectmen. Number 2, in the event that a Board of Selectmen member has an urgent legal matter that needs to be addressed prior to the next scheduled meeting, said member shall get permission from the chair or his or her absence, the vice chair, in consultation with the town manager.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I just read the same thing. I read it 10 times in the weeks prior to this meeting.
Okay, the chair has the right.
No, it doesn't say that. It does not say that.
You're playing on words.
No, listen,
not
you
gonna-
cannot have your cake and eat it too. You can't sit here 6 months ago or 8 months ago or whatever it was and tell me that I have no right to go and talk to legal counsel. If I feel there's an emergency matter, it has to come before this board. And now, 8 months later, because it's not convenient for you, you wanna say it's semantics. That's garbage. That's a garbage argument.
We're not gonna,
Absolutely not.
we're not
I'm
gonna
not
go,
gonna go-
excuse me, we're not gonna have conversation back and forth between members. We're not
This
gonna.
has
You're
been
gonna
going
wait
on.
to be addressed before you speak.
Okay,
Mr.
this
Simonian.
has been going on for far too long, okay? The first time I got elected to this board, how many times did you tell me that teamwork on this board was paramount? Many. Many times, okay? And since then, in the last year or so, it seems like that's pretty much gone out the window. And I would look no further than to the fact that more than 90% of this time, this board has voted 4-1 with me in the minority. Do you know what the astronomical odds are of 4 strangers agreeing more than 90% of the time and not agreeing with someone else even 10% of the time?
I would ask you, Mr. Simonian, to review every vote that this board has
I would.
taken and look at what the votes are.
I would.
Because I would respectfully disagree that it's been 4-1 on the majority of the votes. I would absolutely disagree with you on that. And,
A lot of 3-2s.
or 5-0.
The point is, we vote for policies, we need a policy for this, we need a policy for that. We don't think of the repercussions, and then we just violate the policy. Oh, there's a reason why I use my cell phone.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, I didn't
ridiculous.
say I used my cell phone, I just said if, the only time I could think whether I used it or not was maybe to check a time for a hearing. I have not seen people on this board using their cell phones while the meeting is ongoing. Mr. Simonian, if you're seeing people using their cell phones and you feel they're in violation of the policy, why not address it at the time?
Why even violate the policy?
Exactly. So why?
Why have the policy if we're gonna violate it? Why should it have to be pointed out? Right?
Clearly, because we have the
Okay.
policy.
You're right.
I don't have eyes in the
So
back of
if-
my head.
So I just want to go back to the comment Mr. Gross made. I agree to an extent. There was an urgent matter. You and I had a conversation. You spoke to town council because I raised the question that I thought there was only a vote. I have no problem, that was an urgent matter. But we didn't have the meeting in the executive session until 3 weeks later. 3 weeks was plenty of time to convene this board and ask this board to vote as to whether or not we had town council present that night. That wasn't done. You made it clear that it was your call to do that. It was in violation of the board policy.
It was based on your request.
No.
It was based on your allegation that this board took an illegal vote. After my
Absolutely.
conversation with town council, which this, we have to be careful because it is executive
I
session
understand.
matter. It was a matter that needed to wait until executive session when town council could be there. It had, Mr. Simonian, you have challenged me so many times. If I don't have town council, if I don't have council there, you're gonna challenge me again. If I had
Can
told you
give me
that.
specific examples of when I've
Well,
challenged?
it's in executive session, so I need to be careful there.
I brought up.
You don't know the resolution of your question you raised a legal issue to.
You're right.
Because you didn't attend.
No, you're right, because, well, let's put that out there for the public, because since you brought it up, you're absolutely right. I refused to participate in that
It was an
executive-
open session. I mean, I'm
No.
not,
But I refused, once the 4 of you voted to allow town council to be there outside of the policy, I absolutely refused to be part of that executive session because I was not going to participate in something I felt was an abuse of taxpayer money and violation of one of our policies. Absolutely true. I was not going to be a hypocrite and then go and participate in that meeting.
Okay.
So,
well, I'll just reiterate.
the
It was
point is,
not.
we have policies, we have rules. You made the innuendo that seemed to indicate I wasn't following them, and yet, why do we have these policies if they're only going to be enforced for certain people?
Okay. Did you have something else on
No,
another
that's
policy?
it. That's it.
Okay. We have no tabled items. Is there any additional public comment? We have the minutes of April 22nd, 2013. Are there any omissions or corrections? Hearing none, the chair will accept them as written. Is there any other business before the board? Nothing? Did you go through all your manager items?
I did?
Okay, great, thanks. Entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.